Thank you. Hello, good evening. Welcome to Wednesday's Look North. Our top story tonight.
What do we want? Pay restoration! When do we want it? No!
Hospitals in our region under pressure as junior doctors strike for a record 6 days.
We don't want to be here, but we feel the government are forcing this on the public and on doctors by not making any steps to reversing pay erosion.
We'll assess the impact on patients and providers of health and social care. Also tonight, an investigation continues into the stabbing of 2 men at Meadowhall Shopping Centre.
Now, I know what you're thinking, but this is not Alexandra Palace, and you won't find Luke Littler here. What you will find is some of Yorkshire's future dart stars at East Leeds Snooker Club. Coming up on the programme shortly.
And the January dippers plunging into cold water every day this month, all for a good cause.
And despite the fact there was a little bit of sunshine in places, the land remains awash with water and runoff. But there is some good news on the horizon. Join me for the very latest.
Hello, thank you for your company. First tonight, there's disruption for our region's hospitals as the longest continuous strike in the history of the NHS began this morning. Scores of planned operations and routine checkups have been cancelled, and there are warnings it will lead to a backlog. So what are the details then? Well, the British Medical Association members walked out at around 7 a.m. today and will remain on strike until 7 a.m. next Tuesday. The BMA is calling for a pay increase of 35% to make up for what they call years of below inflation rises. Well, the latest offer table would have been equivalent to a 3% pay rise from January, to have followed the nearly 9% average pay increase junior doctors received in April in the last pay award. Junior doctors have gone on strike for a total of 28 days since the industrial action began back in March. Well, our health correspondent Jamie Coulson has the details of today's action.
What do we want? Pay restoration!
This is the 9th time junior doctors have walked out on strike in their long-running pay dispute with the government. Doctors here at Leeds General Infirmary have joined colleagues across England in the 6-day stoppage, which will be the longest in the history of the NHS.
We don't want to be here, but we feel the government are forcing this on the public and on doctors by not making any steps to reversing pay erosion.
It is one of the busiest times of the year, but I would like to reassure any patients that are in need of urgent medical attention that the hospital is being looked after by our consultants and specialty doctor colleagues.
Junior doctors are back on the picket lines after negotiations with the government broke down last month. The British Medical Association is calling for pay restoration back to 2008 levels that would require a 35% uplift. The government has said that is unaffordable and has called for the union to call off the strikes so they can get back to the negotiating table. This strike comes at a busy time for the NHS, adding to the pressures hospitals are already facing.
The main areas of pressures that we are seeing at the moment is a huge increase in the number of patients with respiratory problems, COVID and flu type illnesses, and also in the number of vulnerable patients who are in hospitals. Our hospitals are very full as we're going into the longest junior doctor strike in history.
A 3-day junior doctors' strike before Christmas led to 6,653 outpatient appointments being postponed across the 13 hospital trusts in our region. A further 633 procedures also had to be rescheduled.
We have already moved when it comes to reflecting the pressures on doctors at the beginning of their careers, but we cannot continue these negotiations if we have this strike action hanging over the whole of the NHS.
The British Medical Association has today called for the government to make a credible pay offer, but for now the strike continues. Jamie Coulson, BBC Look North.
Well, Dr. James Thomas is the Medical Director of West Yorkshire Integrated Care Board, which brings together providers of health and social care. I asked him what impact the strike was likely to have.
it's a really challenging time anyhow with the winter viruses. But with the industrial action, it's going to have impact both in terms of today and the next 6 days, but also after the industrial action as well, as people's appointments are put off.
Yes, you mentioned this is we're well used to, aren't we, the winter pressures on the NHS. Does this mean people may not get the treatment or the attention perhaps they deserve because of the strike?
No, I think our staff, our frontline staff, are working really hard to ensure that the safety and the care of people is paramount. And so it means prioritising care, yes, but making sure that people get the right care when they need it there.
Is it likely some people may inevitably be forced to wait longer for care or treatment?
I think when you're having to make sure that you're delivering safe care at these times and when it's challenging, then there will be times that we have to prioritise, and it means that some people will have to wait longer. So it's really important that if people are waiting, they realise it's because staff are having to prioritise people and to be kind to our staff and ensure that actually they're doing it because they want to make sure they get the right care at the right time.
Will this mean a greater backlog, though, in clearing operations and treatments?
We've seen with industrial action before, and this has been going on for the last year, that as a result of that, there are backlogs and that there are increases in those backlogs there. We know people have their appointments cancelled, their operations cancelled, so it is inevitable there will be some kind of increase in those backlogs, which we will deal with, but there will definitely be some.
What should people do who maybe feel unwell? Maybe they think, well, these hospitals are overwhelmed at the moment, doctors are on strike, should I really attend? Should they go if they feel they need to?
It's really good to mention that, because I think it is really important. Look, if you've got a life-threatening illness, if you've got an injury that's life-threatening, absolutely you should be attending our emergency departments and calling an ambulance. But actually, if it isn't, or you're wondering whether should you or shouldn't you, then use 111 online or ring 111 and you'll get further advice of what's best to do for your situation you're in.
Really useful information. Thank you very much, Dr. James Thomas. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
OK, let's get some news in brief now. South Yorkshire Police say they're seeing an increased number of calls asking for advice now that it's a legal requirement to keep XL bully dogs on a lead and muzzled when in public. The rules came into place on the 31st of December. It's also illegal to breed, sell, advertise or abandon an XL bully. Police say if you have concerns about a dog in your community and believe a person is at risk, to contact them. From next month, all XL bully dogs must be registered. Owners must hold a public liability insurance, have the dog microchipped and need to prove the dog has been neutered. More than 300 people were arrested on suspicion of drink or drug driving in West Yorkshire over the festive period. 229 people were arrested on suspicion of drink driving and 107 people arrested on suspicion of drug driving. 59 were arrested for failing to provide a sample. Some have already received bans of up to 3 years and fines of over £1,000. Next tonight, an investigation is underway into the stabbing of 2 men at the Meadowhall shopping centre last night. Our reporter Ollie Constable is here with us. Ollie, just remind us of what we know about what happened here.
Yeah, this is an incident that happened at about 6:30 last night at a very busy Meadowhall. Lots of shoppers still in the centre trying to take advantage of those last-minute New Year deals. It's then when a group of men who were all known to each other are said to have got into an altercation. During the incident, 2 19-year-old men were stabbed. Well, a cordon was put in place on the upper floors of the shopping centre, but that has since been taken down and the shops are now open as normal. 2 men, aged 20 and 24, were arrested on suspicion of assault, occasioning grievous bodily harm. They remain in police custody today. Police tell us there's been additional patrols and they're working with the centre staff during their investigation.
And do we know anything, Ollie, about the condition of the 2 people taken to hospital?
Yeah, the 2 19-year-olds were taken to hospital after the incident. One of those had minor injuries and has since been discharged. The other had serious injuries and remains in hospital tonight in a stable condition. Police said no one expects to encounter this kind of violence while out shopping, and they will not tolerate knife crime in any of our communities. OK,
Ollie, thank you for that update. Ollie Constable with that report. You're watching Wednesday's Look North. Still to come on tonight's programme. Could a shake-up of the way buses are run in one part of our region see small operators forced off the road? Next tonight, a charity is warning that drugs up to 300 times stronger than heroin are being used on the streets of Yorkshire. Synthetic opioids have already been linked to more than 50 deaths across the UK. The charity Changing Lives is training up volunteers to give injections of a different drug, naloxone, which can reverse the effects of an overdose and help save a life. Dave Edwards takes up the story.
Take off the blue cap.
Inside this syringe is naloxone, a new weapon in the fight against super-strength drugs. These volunteers in York have been trained to inject someone with it and reverse an opioid overdose, possibly saving that person's life.
I'm a recovering addict. I've been a chef 21 years, ended up hitting rock bottom and then ended up in a hostel, what Changing Lives ran. And one of the managers there one day said, "We're doing this naloxone training, do you fancy getting involved?" My mum passed away when I was 10 of heroin, so I thought if I can prevent children going through that, absolutely brilliant.
I'm currently 16 months clean and sober. I was introduced to the naloxone peer group when I was in a homeless shelter about 9 months ago, and I thought it would be a good thing to do to give back to the community. My father had a heroin overdose 6 years ago and died. So because it's an opioid and because it's addiction, it was actually really close to my heart.
You might think York is a well-off city that doesn't face problems with drugs. In fact, the substances are getting stronger.
There are synthetic opiates which have claimed lives this month, and in the last few months these drugs are incredibly strong. They're up to 300 times stronger than heroin, and we are looking at really getting naloxone out there to save as many lives as possible.
You know you'll cuddle off me.
The volunteers are well known in the city.
Look after yourself.
They connect with homeless people and drug users and also train up others to use naloxone. Tim has already used it to help a man who was left unconscious by an overdose.
He came round and went into instant withdrawal. Wasn't the happiest chap. Had a few choice words because I've literally just taken away his high for the day. He got to hospital, and that was the last I've heard of it. And then 2 weeks after, I'm walking through town, I get this, "Oi!" And he's come up to me, shook my hand, and he said, "Thank you very much, you saved my life." He goes, "I've got kids, I've got my missus." He goes, "I've stopped injecting," and he just said, "Thank you very much."
The group want to train as many people as they can. Tim and Rebecca say naloxone could have helped their parents to stay alive.
Not everybody who uses drugs is an evil person. You know, quite a lot of people using them to cover up traumatic experiences. You know, so only because they use a needle, it doesn't mean they deserve to die. So potentially we're helping, you know, kids having parents, you know, keeping their parents instead of, you know, because everybody makes mistakes, and that mistake shouldn't end your life.
The substances don't matter. The underlying issues are where we find common ground. I could have easily ended up on opioids. It was alcohol for me. I actually feel a lot closer to my dad since he's passed, and since I do this stuff, I know that he's proud too.
And we wish them continued success with that worthwhile scheme. Dave Edwards with that report. Now, £40 million of cuts have been announced in Bradford as the council fights to avoid going bust. Services will close, there will be more than 100 job losses. And the council leader says council tax will also have to go up too. Our political reporter Aisha Akbal sent us this report.
Well, the warning signs were there just before Christmas when the leadership here at Bradford City Hall made a direct plea to the government for financial help to save them from this knife-edge predicament they find themselves in. Bankruptcy narrowly avoided. Those conversations with ministers, I'm told, are continuing behind the scenes, but definitely not a happy new year for Bradford's taxpayers. £40 million of cuts and proposed cuts announced by Susan Hinchcliffe, the leader of Bradford Council today, and some brutal budget decisions on the cards. The list is long. Over the next 3 years, we're looking at the closure potentially of a children's residential centre, the closure of 3 recycling centres over in Queensbury, in Keighley and in Ilkley, a raft of fees and charges going up, for example, at car parks. That warning given to taxpayers today. And we're also told that more than 100 jobs in various departments also potentially at risk. Now, Susan Hinchcliffe, the leader of the council, I spoke to her earlier today, and she said this is all down to more than a decade of government cuts.
You can't survive on the money that governments are not giving us anymore. You know, 10 years ago, 13 years ago, we got 62% of our funding used to come from the national government. Now it's 9%. That is an unsustainable cut, really, for us, and things have to be done differently in the future. So whilst we're announcing these proposals for cuts today, we will have to come back during the year with more cuts, because obviously we need to bridge that gap.
Can the council afford to spend the millions it is on the Year of Culture then, in that case?
We can't afford not to, because obviously it's very much part of our growth ambitions for the future. The City of Culture Trust is a separate organisation, and they've managed to bring in £30 million worth of funding to make sure that year is going to be an absolutely fantastic year in 2025. But we can't run a city without growth.
Bradford Council's perilous financial position, largely driven by crisis after crisis in its children's services, of course. The department was taken over by an independent trust earlier this year. Despite that, a £50 million overspend is predicted for the children's services this year. Susan Hinchcliffe, the leader of the council, not shying away from the council taking responsibility for its failings in that, but she also stresses that this is about the bigger picture, and many other councils across the country are finding themselves increasingly having to make more and more brutal cuts. Meanwhile, trade unionists today saying that it's communities that are going to have to suffer and that services can't run on thin air.
Aisha Iqbal reporting from Bradford. Well, the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities have said tonight the council wrote to the department requesting exceptional financial support. They've been engaging regularly with them. In a statement, the department said, "We stand ready to speak to any council that has concerns about its ability to manage its finances or faces pressures it hasn't planned for." OK, a shake-up of the way buses are run in West Yorkshire could see small operators forced to close, according to one bus company. The West Yorkshire Combined Authority is looking at introducing franchising, meaning they would decide which companies can run services. But the managing director of Connections Buses says if his firm doesn't win a contract, they won't be able to operate in West Yorkshire, and that could be the end of their business. Here's our correspondent Spencer Stokes, with the details.
In a small bus company, even the managing director works as a driver. Craig Temple set up Connections Buses, a family-run firm that he fears could be wiped off the map by bus franchising. Since the 1980s, private bus companies have been able to run services where and when they want. But the plan for franchising would see the West Yorkshire Combined Authority handing out contracts to specific firms. No contract, no right to run a bus on that route.
I think it's the biggest challenge that we've faced for a long time. I'd like to hope that the authority would look after smaller operators because they say they're going to, but it does have the potential to put us out of business.
In 2024, West Yorkshire's Mayor Tracy Brabin will decide if franchising should go ahead. If it does, there'll be one bus brand for West Yorkshire, with routes, timetables, bus frequency and fares set by the Combined Authority. It's already happening in Greater Manchester, where just one contract has gone to a small independent firm. But the Combined Authority say we recognise the important role smaller operators play in West Yorkshire's bus network, and we believe their involvement is vital for delivering competition and ensuring the best value for taxpayers. In recent weeks, campaigners who support public control have taken to the road, hiring a bus and driving it around Bradford.
The UK is the only place in Europe that runs this absurd system of handing complete control over to a patchwork of private companies that can't then integrate the services in the public interest. We need to get back on that European model and get back in the fast lane.
A public consultation ends on January the 7th, with the Mayor expected to make a decision on whether franchising goes ahead later in the spring. Spencer Stokes, BBC Look North.
Thank you, Spencer, for getting that name right as well. OK, let's turn to sport. Let's look ahead to a match that the whole country is looking forward to tonight. Yes, it's the World Championship darts final featuring 16-year-old Luke Littler. He's from the northwest, of course, but how many budding young darts players here in our region are now thinking that could be me in the future? Paul Ogden is with some budding young players at a club in East Leeds for us tonight. Are you ready for the Ocky there, Oggy?
Well, I'm getting ready for it, Phil, and there are lots behind me who are as well. And this is only one location in Yorkshire where they're buzzing at the Luke Littler phenomenon. This is East Leeds Snooker Club with its darts facility. The blue and white shirts you can see in the background are the magnificent Yorkshire youth squad, the males of which are top of their league. And we can talk to a couple of them who might or might not have been influenced by the Luke Littler phenomenon. Brad, come over here before your next throw, my friend, and tell us what you get out of darts. You're a regular here, but what's so good about it for you?
Oh, it brings enjoyment to everyone. It's good for youth, JDC, ADC, you know, creates more opportunities and it keeps people, you know, away from the bad life on the streets and that.
Absolutely, and you've obviously got a lot of mates here that you see regularly. Just tell us about that.
Yeah, I've got a set of his darts.
Really?
Yeah.
Just show them in the palm of your hand to the camera, will you? What's so special about them?
Just feel right in hand and, yeah, just feel natural in my hands.
Would you care to put a price on them, sir?
£102.
Honestly?
Yeah.
For a set of darts?
Well, yeah, they're that good.
What do you get out of darts? Are you going to take it all the way into the future?
I'm hoping to become professional, take the thrill of winning and keep on carrying my journey on.
After you've finished supporting Luke Littler, I assume?
I only support myself. Yeah.
I like the sound of that. Just let's interrupt the gentleman behind you, who you may have recognised, folks, as the two-time former world champion, Bradford lad Scott Waite. Scott, welcome to the show. You are happy, despite your fantastic CV, to mix it with normal people and with the young ones. Do you coach them as well?
Oh, we don't do. We do a little bit of coaching, but you know, I've got to come and show them who's boss. You know, Wednesday night's great here. It's fantastic, but you know, you can't let them take advantage of you.
What do you reckon to the Luke Littler phenomenon? Is it doing much for darts?
Yeah, you know what? For the young kids, it's an inspiration, isn't it, to everybody. Just goes to show what a lot of dedication can do from a young age. I mean, 16. I mean, it's phenomenal. World class at 16-year-old. Not many people can say that.
And the young guys these days get a lot of criticism for their lifestyle choices. Would you recommend it?
Playing darts, yeah, definitely. I mean, mathematics, subtracting, dividing, you know, everything's there. I mean, you can take darts into school, you can do programs, you can do anything you want. It is good for mind and, you know, it's... How many steps do you get walking up and down that hockey, retrieving your darts from that dartboard? Thousands.
Very persuasive. It certainly did you okay, didn't it? And you're passing it on, which is good to see. Thank you for joining us tonight, Scott. Good luck in the future. Here, and this is just one Yorkshire location, there's talk of an academy in future. They can't get enough of darts here, Luke Littler or not.
Okay, live in Leeds, thank you very much for that. Now, finally tonight, every day this month, a group of hardy souls is swimming in cold water outdoors to raise money for charity. The idea behind the January Daily Dip has been going for 7 years, and so far they've raised nearly £150,000. Abijolo went along to Janet's Foss, a well-known swimming spot in Malham, to see them in action.
There's nothing quite like a brisk walk on a winter's day in the beautiful Yorkshire Dales. But this brave bunch aren't here for the hike, they're here to swim.
Well, I personally do this because I absolutely love it, and it's so good for your mental health, and I'm all about promoting good mental health.
It's really energising and exciting, and you can see from our smiles that we love it.
If I said it was warm, I'd be lying. It's not as cold as it can be, but it's not warm. We think it's about 7 degrees today.
They are stripping off and diving in. This group are experienced swimmers. They're used to cold water and take safety really seriously. Jess is a wild swimming instructor.
It can be dangerous, yeah. You have to be careful, learn about what you're going to do if you want to try, and don't start in January.
Today, a novice swimmer would not get in that waterfall, but obviously we know the area really well, and you know, we know all the precautions to take.
These daily dips in January began as a challenge between 3 friends 7 years ago. Now 25 people being sponsored to take the plunge, raising money for homelessness charity Crisis.
As a young mum, a single mum, I really struggled to keep a roof over mine and my daughter's head for many years, and I was lucky enough to have the support of amazing family and amazing friends that helped me through some really rough times. So I can't imagine what it's like for people that don't have that. And Crisis is, such an important charity trying to help people in those situations.
They're hoping to raise £10,000 this month, so that's 3 days done, only 28 more freezing dips to go. Abby Jayola, BBC Look North, Malham.
That's absolutely bonkers. Better them than me, that's all I can say. If it's 7 degrees now, I think it's going to get colder over the coming days.
I think it's less than 7 degrees. I think you should get your Speedos on and give it a go. Give
you
us
imagine?
All a laugh. I couldn't even do that in the middle of summer, never mind in the middle of winter. But anyway, lots of water around. We'll start with the River Ure in Boroughbridge, which was really quite swollen even at lunchtime today. And we covered this story yesterday, but Neyburn has still got a lot of water around. A little bit of sunshine there this morning, but that gives you an idea of how much rain is still lying around. The land is absolutely saturated, but the great news is we have got a dry spell of weather on the way, and I think January in general will turn out to be a much drier month and a colder month. There's the contacts if you've got any pictures you'd like to send in. So tomorrow we will see a few early showers at first, but it will soon improve and the afternoon should be dry and quite sunny. And once again, have a look at this Atlantic sequence. Watch out, the milder yellows give way to the cooler and then colder blues, and the low pressure moves out of the way and we become dominated by high pressure. Look, the warmer Atlantic air is way out to the west and we're covered with continental blue air. So it will be cold, not exceptionally cold, but I think the main thing is for the saturated land, we've got a dry spell of weather on the way, which is, of course, great news. There's the radar picture. We've seen quite a number of showers, especially this morning across South Yorkshire. They're few and far between at the moment, but it looks as though they'll pep up a little bit as we head through this evening and overnight. Running again through West and South Yorkshire, a few for western parts of North Yorkshire, and we'll see lowest temperatures tonight coming in at around about 4 or 5 degrees. Tomorrow's high water times in Filey at 9:55. Bridlington at 8 minutes past 10. So a slow start in the morning, a lot of cloud. There'll be those overnight showers, soon clearing South Yorkshire, West and latest North Yorkshire. But as you can see, by the time we get to the afternoon, it's really quite nice, dry with some sunshine. And I think much of South Yorkshire tomorrow will have a good deal of fine weather too. Top temperatures coming in at around 8 Celsius, that's 46 Fahrenheit. And then the further outlook, a quiet spell of weather, much less windy, much less wet, and a lot of dry weather, in fact, but temperatures dropping away. Frost and fog making a return. That's the forecast.
Perfect conditions for dipping, I would say. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, if you like.
I think Speedos is a rather repulsive thought.
Well, with you, yes.
That's as far as to go for now. See you at 10:30. Good night.